All right. I'm going to now let the panelists discuss the comments raised by the other panelists. Ambassador Bolton, do you have any comments to make?
Well, I think I'll try and respond briefly to two of Elliot's points, and I think they're both legitimate questions. One is where do you draw the line on referenda on status? And he named a number of interesting places where such referenda might be held. I just off the top of my head can't think of any reason to hold a referendum in any of them now or in the future. So why the Western Sahara? Because in 1991, we were confronted with a situation that arose in the aftermath of the First Gulf War, where after nearly 16 years of trying, the UN Secretary General had finally gotten the parties to agree on what to do with the Western Sahara. And the Moroccans agreed to it. Let's be clear here. They agreed to a referendum on this choice, independence or integration with Morocco. And they agreed on what the population would be, as reflected in the Secretary General's report based on the Spanish census of 1975. And I remember very clearly in the summer of 1991 or the early spring, Ed Dirigian, who was then the Assistant Secretary for the Near East Bureau, said, look, boy, in the aftermath of the Gulf War, all kinds of things are possible. We think the situation is right politically across the region to get this referendum, and this is one more problem we'll be able to fix in the aftermath of the war. So I was just in the mode then of cranking out UN Security Council resolutions. We put this peacekeeping force together. We figured, how hard can this be? The voting population, as I recall, was somewhere between 75 and 80,000. I mean, really, honest to God, how hard can it be to have a referendum on that basis? And we had all the parties agreeing to it. This is the new UN, right? Everything's going to be great. And by the fall of 1991, Morocco had driven us into a ditch because they had decided they didn't want the referendum. But that was the point. The reason we decided it was it looked like it was doable. It looked like everybody agreed to it. We had a territory where legitimate claim of sovereignty had disappeared with the collapse of the Franco dictatorship in Spain in 1975. And now we were going to have an answer and resolve a conflict. Why did we therefore support the referendum? Because it made sense in that context. And it still makes sense to me today, because I still don't think it would be very hard to do. But after 30 years, it's not much of a recommendation for the United Nations. But I don't think it has any implication beyond the Western Sahara. Point two, very quickly, Elliot's talked about the tensions between Morocco and Algeria, and it's an important point. And I'll just tell one more war story. In 1997, I accompanied former Secretary Baker on one of his many trips as part of his negotiation, and we met with the new King Mohammed VI in his office, one of his offices, I think, in Marrakesh. Very impressive office. Behind his desk was a map of Morocco, in one of those map cases where you can close the doors, but the doors were open. So we could see the map of Morocco that hung behind his desk. You won't be surprised to hear it included the Western Sahara. It also included the western half of Algeria and a big chunk of Mauritania. So, there are a lot of tensions in the region. They're not all caused by Algeria. I think the Western Sahara could be a viable state. I just wish the people had a chance to have a vote.